you ever wondered what happens when, like, an unstoppable cultural movement meets an absolute tactical anomaly on the world's biggest stage?
It's it's the kind of scenario that forces us to completely rethink how we analyze sports, to be honest.
Oh, totally.
Because you usually expect the underdog to just, scramble and pray.
Yeah, exactly. Welcome to today's deep dive. We are unpacking a massive stack of sources today surrounding one of the most stunning paradigm-shifting results of the 2026 World Cup,
Norway's 2-1 victory over five-time champions Brazil in the round of 16.
which is just wild. I mean, if you've been following the tournament, you know the scoreline. But we aren't just reading a box score today. We are really looking at this bizarre collision of group psychology, biomechanics, and historical baggage.
Right, because when you dig into the source material, you realize this upset wasn't just some fluke.
No, not at all.
It was a masterclass in exploiting an opponent's structural weaknesses while simultaneously wielding this, psychological weapon that was forged entirely in the grandstands.
Yeah, and we're going to explore that exact weapon, plus the bizarre tactical role reversal that played out on the pitch, and of course, the sheer inevitability of Erling Haaland.
Oh, for sure. You can't talk about this game without talking about him.
Exactly. Okay, let's unpack this. To understand how a Goliath like Brazil doesn't just lose, but looks completely bewildered while doing it, we have to start with the atmosphere.
The Viking row.
The Viking row. I mean, if you are listening to this and you've been on social media at any point during this tournament, you have seen this phenomenon.
It's literally everywhere.
It has swept across North America. We're talking videos of fans doing this in elevators in Boston, in the middle of Times Square, in the bleachers of a New York Mets game.
I even saw politicians doing it in the Norwegian parliament.
Yes, it's thousands of fans sitting down in perfect synchronization, mimicking the pulling of heavy Viking oars to a thunderous, rhythmic shout of "Row!"
And it looks deeply ancestral. Like when you watch the footage, it feels like an ancient battle cry passed down through generations of Nordic warriors.
That is the illusion. But our sources reveal something that is actually kind of hilarious.
What's that?
It was basically invented 6 months ago. December 2025.
Wait, really? Only 6 months?
Yeah. A single fan named Ole Frøystad, who the media is now calling Mr. Row, he just pitched the idea. And it was a complete mess at first.
Oh, I'm sure the growing pains were real.
Definitely.
The sources actually document a goalless draw against Switzerland in March, where they tried it. Torstein Hamren, a board member of the supporters club, openly admitted it looked, quote, a bit silly.
I can only imagine. Picture trying to orchestrate a perfectly timed flash mob at a heavy metal concert.
Just luck with that.
Right. You have thousands of chaotic, adrenaline-fueled, beer-drinking football fans. Their natural instinct is to stand up, jump around, scream.
Yeah, it's pure chaos.
And you are asking them to actively suppress that primal urge, sit down in a tiny plastic stadium seat, and follow a rigid, silent rhythm before exploding on cue. The discipline that requires is just staggering.
Well, they realized they needed a system. By June, during a friendly against Sweden, they had circulated an instructional video on social media.
No way.
Yeah, they literally had to train the fan base. They brought in a handcrafted Viking horn to serve as the auditory trigger.
And Torstein Hamren anchored the whole thing with a secondhand drum he bought back in 2023, just standing at the front.
Right.
He strikes it twice, and those pauses between the strikes, they build this agonizing tension in the stadium before the entire crowd screams. They're up to using multiple drums now just to manage the speed of sound across these massive NFL-sized stadiums.
That's incredible. And didn't the players get involved too?
Oh, yeah. Captain Martin Odegaard and the players started joining the fans on the pitch after matches to do the row. There's even a hit song in Norway right now called Viking Blood, built entirely around this chant.
Wow.
But let's pause here. Put your analytical lens on for a second. We know it sounds cool, but how does an organized fan chant actually impact the minds of the professional athletes on the grass?
Well, what's fascinating here is the concept of collective efficacy.
Okay, unpack that.
This isn't just noise. In sports psychology, collective efficacy is the shared belief among a group that they can successfully execute a specific task.
Right.
When athletes walk out of a tunnel and see thousands of people suppressing their individual chaos to move as one synchronized organism, it physically alters the environment.
Are you saying it actually changes their brain chemistry?
It genuinely acts as a psychological buffer against stress.
Really?
Yeah. Hearing and seeing that synchronization lowers cortisol, the stress hormone in the underdog, while raising it in the opponent, It visually levels the playing field.
That makes so much sense.
If you're a Brazilian player, you aren't just playing 11 guys in red shirts. You're stepping into a hostile, unified ecosystem.
Yeah.
It completely strips away the intimidation factor.
And that unity in the stands perfectly mirrored the tactical discipline we saw on the pitch. Because this is where the game got incredibly weird.
Very weird.
We saw a tactical role reversal where Brazil, the 5-time world champions, played exactly like a desperate underdog.
The underlying statistics for this match look like they belong to a completely different game.
Brazil is synonymous with Jogo Bonito, the beautiful game. Flowing, attacking, dominant possession soccer. Yet they finished this match with only 34% of the ball.
Just 34%.
Yeah, Norway commanded 66% possession. Norway's coach, Ståle Solbakken, was quoted comparing the dynamic to Manchester City playing Real Madrid.
Right. He pointed out that Brazil just sat back in the low block to absorb pressure and tried to counterattack.
Exactly. So why would they do that?
Well, we have to look at the mechanical reasons why Brazil manager Carlo Ancelotti opted for that strategy. It wasn't entirely by choice.
Okay.
They were severely constrained by the absence of their primary playmaker, Lucas Paqueta, who was out with an injury.
So break down why one guy missing forces a team like Brazil to abandon the ball.
Think of a playmaker as the transmission in a car.
I like that.
They connect the engine, the defense, to the wheels, which are the forwards. Without Paqueta, Brazil lost their primary mechanism for receiving the ball under pressure in the middle of the pitch, turning, and distributing it smoothly.
So the transmission is blown.
Exactly. When you lose that connective tissue against a highly disciplined team, you can't build up play slowly. You're basically forced to bypass the midfield entirely.
And then there's the Casemiro problem.
Yes. Casemiro is their defensive anchor. But he picked up a yellow card in their previous match against Japan. The rules state that one more yellow, and he misses the quarterfinal.
So he's playing with a handbrake on.
A massive handbrake. A holding midfielder's entire job is to disrupt the opponent's rhythm. Yeah. You step up, you press aggressively, and if they break past you, you make a cynical tactical foul to stop the counterattack.
But Casemiro couldn't do any of that.
Right. He just couldn't risk the foul.
It's like being a nightclub bouncer, but you're legally not allowed to touch anybody. You just have to stand there and politely ask people to stop.
That's a perfect analogy.
So Brazil drops deep because they can't control the midfield. But here's where it gets really interesting, and I want to push back on the prevailing narrative I've seen in the media.
Okay, let's hear it.
Everyone looks at that 66% possession stat and says Norway dominated the game. I don't buy it.
Oh, you think Brazil's strategy was actually working?
I think it worked perfectly right up until the final second. Look at the expected goals, the XG metric that measures the quality of scoring chances.
Right.
This was a classic rope-a-dope boxing strategy. Brazil willingly leaned on the ropes, let Norway swing themselves out of energy with all that possession, and then hit them with massive counterpunches.
The numbers definitely support that.
Brazil generated 2.73 expected goals and 5 major big chances. Norway only generated 0.84 expected goals.
Wow.
Brazil executed the rope-a-dope flawlessly. They just completely forgot to throw the knockout punch when the opening was there.
I'm really glad you brought up the XG because the underlying metrics tell a devastating story of Brazilian wastefulness.
Yeah, they really do.
The structural game plan didn't fail Ancelotti. Individual execution failed the game plan. And it happened at 2 catastrophic junctures.
Let's talk about the 13th minute first.
So Brazil wins a penalty early. Bruno Guimaraes steps up to take it. Now, context is everything here. Guimaraes had taken 3 penalties in his entire professional career before this moment.
Okay.
He scored all 3. A flawless 100% conversion rate.
So he's a sure thing.
Normally, yes. But in front of that synchronized crowd, he attempts this unconvincing stutter step, hesitates, and strikes the ball at the absolute perfect height for a goalkeeper to parry away.
Brutal. Missing a penalty is one thing, but missing it when your entire strategy is based on scoring on the counter, I mean, it alters the gravity of the whole match.
Oh, completely.
But the second failure is even crazier to me.
The 58th minute.
Yes.
Ancelotti makes a substitution, bringing on the teenage sensation, Endrick. The sources note that exactly 52 seconds after stepping onto the pitch, Endrick is released clean through on goal. It's a pure one-on-one.
52 seconds. If you're a fan listening, that is the absolute dream scenario. Your wonder kid comes on and immediately gets a breakaway.
Right. And the XG metric rated that specific chance at 0.70.
So a 70% chance of going in.
Exactly. In plain terms, an average professional player scores from that exact position 70% of the time.
Yeah.
But Endrick takes a surprisingly heavy first touch. The ball runs away from him just enough, and he completely misplaces the shot.
It's the ultimate punishment of the rope-a-dope strategy. If you only have 34% of the ball, your margin for error is absolute zero.
You cannot afford to be wasteful.
Because if you lean on the ropes and let a team swing at you all night, eventually they are going to land a punch. And when that team is Norway, you are leaving the door wide open for their ultimate weapon.
Which brings us to the sheer inevitability of Erling Haaland.
The man operates like a glitch in a video game.
He really does.
He was quiet for most of the match, but he scores 2 late goals in the 79th and 90th minutes. Those goals tied him with Mbappe and Messi at 7 tournament goals.
Incredible company to be in.
But the opening goal is what fascinated me, because it was a Premier League rivalry transplanted onto the world stage.
Haaland of Manchester City matched up against Gabriel Magalhaes of Arsenal.
Yes, we've seen Gabriel use Arsenal's aggressive man-marking system to neutralize Haaland in the past. But in the 79th minute, a young halftime substitute named Andreas Schrelderup loops in a cross.
Right.
Gabriel gets caught inexplicably flat-footed, and Haaland just eclipses him in the air for a smash-down header. Haaland was actually asked about his finishing after the match, and his quote was incredible.
What did he say?
He said, "If I get a chance or two, it usually ends up as a goal. I'm starting to realize now, I think, that it's a gift from God."
Wow. It takes a unique level of self-belief to casually refer to your biomechanics as divine intervention.
No kidding.
But as inevitable as Haaland was, we're missing half the picture if we don't look at the opposite end of the pitch. I mean, Haaland's heroics are completely irrelevant if Brazil actually finishes those counterattacks.
Enter the unsung hero Orjan Nyland, the 35-year-old Norwegian goalkeeper. He saved the Guimaraes penalty in the 13th minute, yes, but he also made these physics-defying, point-blank leg saves against Vinicius Jr. and Gabriel Martinelli later in the game.
Yeah, the game of his life.
Nyland even called it the biggest match of his life. But here is the detail from the sources I want to interrogate you on.
Okay, sure.
They mentioned Nyland is a former youth team handball player. Broadcasters love calling him the Volta Viking. So tell me the truth. Does playing a completely different sport as a teenager actually give a 35-year-old soccer goalie a measurable mechanical advantage on the world stage? Or is that just like a fun piece of trivia commentators use to fill dead air?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture of sports biomechanics, it is far more than trivia. It is a highly specific, measurable advantage.
Really? How so?
To understand why, you have to look at how traditional soccer goalkeepers are trained versus handball goalkeepers.
Okay, traditional soccer goalies dive. They extend their arms.
Correct. Traditional coaching emphasizes pushing off the legs to generate lateral power and using the arms and hands to make the block. You stretch your body out horizontally.
Right.
But team handball is entirely different. The goal is much smaller, 3 meters wide by 2 meters high. And the shots come from players jumping right at the crease, throwing a small ball at speeds much faster than a human brain can process a traditional diving motion.
So if you dive in handball, you're already too late.
Exactly. Handball goalkeepers are explicitly trained to use reflex kick saves. They develop unorthodox, rapid leg extensions.
Like using your legs instead of your hands?
Yes. They essentially do these splits in midair, bringing their feet and shins up to block low or mid-height shots. They use their lower body as a wall rather than a springboard.
Which perfectly describes Nyland's saves against Vinicius Jr. and Martinelli.
Think about catching a glass that slips off a counter. You don't think about it. Your hand just snaps out. When those elite Brazilian wingers were bearing down on him from point-blank range, a traditional soccer dive would have been mechanically too slow.
Because they're just too close.
Right. Nyland's brain bypassed his soccer training and relied on deeply ingrained neuromuscular pathways built on a handball court decades ago.
That's amazing.
He used rapid leg extensions to instantly cover the lower angles. That cross-training biomechanic literally saved Norway's World Cup.
Decades-old muscle memory showing up to deny the most talented forwards on earth. That is wild. And these individual moments, Haaland towering over Gabriel, Nyland doing the midair splits, they didn't just win a single soccer match.
No, they didn't.
They activated one of the strangest historical curses in all of international sports, fundamentally redefining a tiny nation's legacy.
We really need to frame the sheer scale of the mismatch here, too.
Let's do it. Brazil is the undisputed soccer superpower, a massive population, endless resources, and 5 World Cup titles.
And Norway.
Norway is a nation of just 5.4 million people. To put that in perspective, there are individual neighborhoods in Sao Paulo with more people than Norway.
That's a staggering contrast.
And before this tournament, Norway hadn't even qualified for a World Cup in 28 years. But there's a bizarre historical stat that hung over this entire match. Norway is the only team Brazil has played but never beaten.
I actually had to double-check that when reading the sources because it sounds impossible.
4 meetings in their entire history. 2 draws, 2 Norway wins, including a famous upset in the 1998 World Cup.
And Brazil wasn't just fighting that head-to-head history. They were fighting what the sources refer to as the Ancelotti curse.
Oh, this is fascinating.
Yeah.
Brazil has now been eliminated by the first European team they've faced in the knockout stages in 5 of their last 6 World Cups. They actually hired Carlo Ancelotti, a European tactical genius, specifically to fix this European mental block.
And it still happens.
So what does this all mean? How does a tiny nation with a 28-year absence from the tournament become the psychological kryptonite to the greatest soccer nation on earth?
This raises an important question about the burden of expectation. We talked earlier about collective efficacy for Norway, but we have to talk about generational trauma for Brazil.
Generational trauma in soccer.
Yeah. When a Brazilian player puts on that famous yellow jersey in a knockout game against a European team, they are not just playing the 90 minutes in front of them. They are dragging the ghosts of 2006, 2010, 2014, 2018, and 2022 onto the pitch with them.
The jersey gets incredibly heavy.
Extremely heavy. That historical baggage creates microscopic tension in the muscles. You saw that tension in Grimare's stutter step on the penalty. You saw it in Endrick's unusually heavy first touch. The fear of repeating history actually causes the mechanical errors that repeat the history.
Wow. While Norway is, completely unburdened.
Precisely. Norway's golden generation, led by Odegaard and Haaland, has 0 World Cup baggage because they hadn't been alive or relevant the last time Norway was there.
They were playing with house money.
Exactly. When you combine that nothing-to-lose psychological freedom with Solbaken's strict tactical discipline, Nyland's handball reflexes, and the terrifying unity of the Viking row, you create a perfect storm.
The giant steps onto the field terrified of tripping, and the underdog steps onto the field absolutely convinced they can fly.
And they flew right into the quarterfinals.
So, bringing this all together for you listening, why does this specific match matter to someone who maybe doesn't even follow soccer?
That's a great question.
It matters because it is a masterclass in the anatomy of an upset. It proves that toppling a giant isn't about blind luck or just trying harder. It is about meticulous, granular preparation like circulating instructional videos for a fan chant 6 months in advance so your team feels invincible.
Right.
It's about maintaining absolute discipline when your opponent has the ball. And most importantly, it's about being clinical enough to capitalize in the exact fraction of a second your superior opponent wastes their opportunity.
It proves that precise execution and unity will always exploit the cracks in Egyptians' armor, no matter how much history they have on their side.
Absolutely. But I want to leave you with one final thought to mull over, building on everything we've just discussed. Think about the butterfly effect of Endrick's missed chance in the 58th minute.
Oh, man.
He had been on the pitch for 52 seconds. The underlying data says a player scores that 70% of the time. What happens if his first touch is just a fraction of an inch later?
He likely slots that ball right past Nyland's outstretched leg.
Brazil goes up 1-0. Suddenly, the rope-a-dope strategy is entirely validated. Norway is forced to abandon their defensive shape and chase the game, opening up massive spaces for Vinicius Jr. to exploit on the counterattack.
And Brazil probably wins comfortably.
Exactly. And if that happens, what happens to the Viking row? Does it just fade into history as a quirky footnote? A slightly silly thing a brave but ultimately failed fan base did in the stands.
It would have been completely forgotten by next week.
Instead, because of one heavy touch and one missed penalty, the Viking row survives, goes viral, and is now the defining cultural symbol of the entire 2026 World Cup. It really makes you wonder, how often is the cultural history of the world dictated not by grand, sweeping narratives, but by a matter of inches on a field of play? Keep digging into those sources, keep questioning the narratives, and we'll catch you on the next deep dive.